The following podcast contains opinions from paid professionals. The information provided in this podcast is general in nature and not advice. For free and confidential support, call 1800 858 858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Welcome back. Week 3 of So We Think as we get really big time into deep spring territory here, Ben Way. Before we get into this week's racing, let's have an accountability check on last week's podcast and some of the things that were mentioned, starting with Lady of Camelot in the Moya, your assessment of that 1,000-metre Group 1.
Well, Gay's assessment was it was a missed opportunity. I don't know. I don't want to question the leading lady in racing, but I thought Zach probably rode Lady of Camelot to the percentages. He just may not have ridden her to instruction. So Mornington Glory's jumped better than they anticipated. They haven't crossed. The race effectively was lost from that point on, but where I say he played the percentages, so they would have preferred him to keep gut busting and go for the lead, whereas he's opted to keep the favourite and main danger 3 deep, and ultimately he's been beaten by the horse on his inside. So from a betting side of things, I got nothing. To anyone who bet each way when we spruiked it at $8, hats off. But, it was a missed opportunity for me. Got that wrong. I'll put my hand up. Got that one wrong.
Yeah, but it was
By this far.
Horses for courses, Mornington Glory 4 from 4 over the 1,000 at Moonee Valley now. I think there was probably a lot of questions whether he was a Group 1 horse. He's won one now, and he had everything in his favour, especially jumping so well and being able to sit right there on speed and dictate the tempo, which was slow for the majority of the race. All credit to Ethan Brown and
you got to remember Zach's
team.
still learning, and it's not just about learning how to ride. It's learning how to ride for certain people in certain races on certain tracks. And he's inexperienced at Moonee Valley. And they would have seen, hey, the clock says you went moderately. Why weren't you in front? And it's as simple as that for the Waterhouse and Bott stable. What else did we suggest? We suggested I Wish I Win would be hitting the line well, and so to Giga Kick, and I guess that was the case. For anyone who backed I Wish I Win, I completely get it. They've just gone for the best horse in the race, but you've got to look at circumstance, and 1,000 metres first up probably wasn't the go.
Big flashing light for him.
Yeah.
He's right on target for the Everest, no
Very
doubt in
right.
that. Giga Kick, I thought, and Private Eye out of the Concord at Randwick, considering the bias that we had on the day. I walked the track for a portion early on in the day. The grass was short, the track was fast, it was firm, rail out 6. It just meant that you had to be, for the majority of the day, you had to be hard up rail, settling in the first couple. The only real exception to the rule was in the fillies race where you had Amina and Manal rattling home, but you look at those early splits in the race, that was all tempo related. Like there was no way they were able to sustain that type of gallop.
And they've probably got the class edge. They've proven that. So they were able to overcome circumstance as well.
So for Giga Kick, first up after a year off, obviously he didn't win, so I lost money there. But he, I think it was a pass mark for him. He's not a 1,000-metre horse. And to be fair, and I think a lot of people who were at Randwick on this day, when he walked into the yard, I did go, ooh, you are carrying a bit more condition than I thought you would.
Right.
And so he will derive a lot of benefit from that first up effort, and then over the 1,200 metres in the next couple of weeks, I think we're going to see the best of him. Same with Private Eye. And it was good to see Amelia's Jewel. She did make that statement. We wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And, of course, she didn't win that first up effort over the 1,400 metres, but with track bias, I don't think she could have done much more.
So long story short, not many bubbles burst, except maybe there's a question mark now with Estriella as to how good it is.
Yeah, I think sitting 3 wide obviously didn't help her cause around the valley, but for a horse who has been discussed as a potential Group 1 winner in waiting, and that's not just us saying that. There has been
She was top 3 in the market for the Everest.
a huge amount of buzz about her over the last little while. Yeah, I think jury could be out with her going forward. Let's get into this Saturday. We get to Flemington for the Group 1 Makybe Diva Stakes over the 1,600 metres, and the big question for everybody is, does Pride of Jenny bounce back from that flat, let's call it flat, first up effort in the Memsie? I know there were a few things against her, the wind primarily being one of them and her first up record, but can she bounce back and win second up?
So what were our pre-race? What was
Concerns?
our pre-race discussion? So with her, we thought she'd gone past Mr. Brightside, but that we may not see the best of her until a little bit later on in the preparation. They were our concerns there. And I guess from a comparative point of view, we thought the Wenk Stakes was going to be the form line, and Via Sistina could prove to be the better horse.
Good
long
review
term.
there. You've brought me back. And you know what? That's exactly what you want to hear, because you want to go back to the initial discussion points to review it.
So that's where we were.
Yeah.
So now where are we? I still think in the autumn she proved superior to Mr. Brightside. I still believe Mr. Brightside's a length or two off his best. And I still think Via Sistina's the better horse of the three at the moment.
Yep.
So she looks very difficult to beat. Can she bounce back? She can bounce back this prep, but I'd need to see improvement before I backed her.
100%. And of course we want to see her back because she's great for racing. She's been a big talking point for the last year at least, when she's, clocked up those Group 1s, including the Queen Elizabeth and the All-Star Mile. Besides the QE2 win, where she did beat a crack field, like that was a ripping field. What do you think about her Group 1 victories over the past few seasons? Do you think she's beaten the best of the best? Because you listen to Chris Waller and Via Sistina, especially what she did first up 1,400 metres for a horse who hasn't won a Group 1 over 1,400 metres before. Like that was seriously, seriously good.
And let's not forget, Via Sistina's SP'd, a near even money in that Queen Elizabeth. So it's not like we're retrospectively saying this. It was predicted pre-race that was the superior horse. And Pride of Jenny, you can sit there and go, we've got that wrong. She's taken all before it. Look at her. She's won easily. But circumstance is a big thing in racing. And, it's just whether she can replicate that time and time again. And the first up run would say maybe she can't, but I won't say she can't. And I agree with you. The spring will be made if Pride of Jenny is at her best in those big races later on.
And circumstances, we've discussed this before. Obviously, in that big win in the Queen Elizabeth, jockey's asleep at the wheel. I think I heard Chris Waller say this morning that, Pride of Jenny and the team, they pulled everyone else's pants down. That was a great quote.
Yeah.
They won't let her do it again. And over the mile, she won't get the opportunity to put that margin on the field. We know they're going to settle. I don't know why there's so much discussion. Oh, will they settle? Of course they'll settle closer. Like there's no way in the world she will ever go out and lead by 30 lengths ever again. That's my view. If she's facing opposition who have seen or have been part of what she's done in the past, that's never going to happen again.
You wouldn't have thought so.
No. So we get to the Run to the Rose at Rose Hill, and it's arguably the race of the day for me, for the 3-year-olds heading towards the Golden Rose in 2 weeks' time. It's all about whether Storm Boy can replicate what he did first up in the San Domenico. And
so you lacked confidence heading into the first up
sure
run.
Did.
Where are you at now?
You've got to be confident of what you saw first up over the 1,100 metres.
Complete flip.
I think so. I mean, he's convinced me that he's back. Second up, I hope he doesn't flatten. There's always question marks, especially of back end of the autumn, what happened. But, he is back in a big way. There is no dancing around that nowadays. He steps up to 1,200 metres, which is going to suit him even better. He does face tougher competition here. I don't think he's going to win by the 3 lengths that he did in the San Domenico. But, he's back in a big way. And you've got to accept that. I've got to accept that.
If you're Coolmore and you've got both runners in, Storm Boy and Switzerland, assuming they both go around Saturday, what do you want to see? Because we know that plan A is to have Storm Boy go to a Guineas and Switzerland to run in an Everest. So if Storm Boy smashes Switzerland by 4 lengths over 1,200, where does that leave them?
It's a great question, because if he does that over the 1,200 metres, then he's got to be your Everest horse, because can you see Switzerland? I mean, Switzerland's first up. So he's going to lack a little bit of fitness and race practice first up compared to what we saw Storm Boy do first up. But you're right. That's a big discussion point to have. The most interesting thing about Storm Boy going forward is, what is he? What is he?
Well, they clearly decided he's a miler. Waterhouse and Bott have decided he's a miler. If that's plan A, that's their suspicion. Who are we to question that? And everything he's done so far would say he's better over further.
Yeah.
But then once he gets over further, is he as good as Traffic Warden? And I'm not sure that's the case. I reckon Traffic Warden, maybe not Saturday, but I reckon once we get over 14 to the mile, we'll have a serious horse, if Godolphin go that way. Because once we got out to 1,400, as a 2-year-old, that's when we saw the best of him.
Geez, that Guineas.
Yeah.
Oh, that Guineas is going to be unbelievable if we get Storm Boy there, if we get Traffic Warden there, if we get Broadsiding there. And then another horse in the field on Saturday in Linebacker who ran second to Broadsiding at Randwick in that Group 1.
I think he's a couple off.
You think?
Yeah. I don't know.
The
but
buzz
there's a
has been
suspicion.
pretty significant.
It has, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's buzz about all of these. They're all fantastic horses.
And then Bustling's the other interesting one in that race because he's already got a spot in the Everest. So what's he out to do? Is Saturday just, here I am in Sydney, I had a good trial, first race day outing. Am I out to win it or am I just out to gather some fitness? Because, he doesn't need to do anything. He's already got the slot.
And that is a huge factor. Huge factor. Where others are having to advertise themselves, I know that you could argue your Switzerland and Storm Boys don't have to advertise themselves given one of them has a slot anyway. But if they didn't have a slot, I'd be taking on Storm Boy all day, every day, because I would think Bustling, off what I saw at the trials and what I've seen to date, would be able to punch up and hold it out. Whereas now, they probably hand up, sit leaders back. And if they happen to win, so be it. Don't you think? Like, they've got no reason to hunt up and burst the bubble.
I don't think so.
When you've got a grand final and you're already in the race.
No.
It's not to say they won't try. They'll try. It's just you don't need to go all out.
Whereas there's more on the line for Storm Boy because I guess Waterhouse Bot Team might go, he's a miler. But again, if he comes out and does demolish this field, and I think this is a quality field for a run to the Rose, then do you set him for a Golden Rose in 2 weeks and then go, you know what, he was electric over 1,100 and 1,200, which he has shown us already this preparation. Let's bring him back for the Everest. There's some big discussions. I mean, if both those horses run well, they're going to have a good hand in the Everest either way.
So now you're back on the Storm Boy train. Who would you choose now for your slot? Storm Boy or Switzerland?
Well, I'd have to say Switzerland. You can't.
You'd go with Switzerland?
No. You have to see him before you can select. I haven't seen him first up yet.
The podcast is on a Thursday, mate. I'm asking you now. If you had to do it today.
Could you choose today having not seen him have a
Well,
run?
I'd have to because that's the hypothetical. I'm not being nice to you.
Nah, I couldn't do it because why would you select a horse who you haven't seen back? Come on.
I think as a 2-year-old, Storm Boy looked a bit better than Switzerland.
Yeah, no doubt. Early on. But
So if I
3-year-old
was to be
year
asked
is
today, I'd
different.
go that way. All right.
Really
nice
interesting
options to have
race.
for them.
Absolutely. And, the quality doesn't stop there. I mean, you read the horse in the bottom of the field to be ridden by Tyler Schiller. I mean, I would call it Emirate, but someone's telling me I've been hearing it's Emirate. Is that right?
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Wow.
Yeah, the one that
Yeah.
got me was a few years ago now was Jonker. Because Pat
Yonker.
who was the Tour de France rider from Australia,
Silent J.
I assumed it was named after him. As it turned out, it was named after a diamond, which oddly was named after a guy who I still suspect was Yonker. But it's the Jonker diamond. So anyway, we're always going to have those. Oh, that staggers me. So it's
Yeah.
Emirate.
Well, I'll wait to hear Darren Flindell's call on Saturday, but I have heard a couple, Emirate, which has confused me to no end. The Scirocco is the other big feature at Rosehill Gardens on Saturday for the fillies and the mares over the 1,200 metres at Group 2 level. Is it a race in two? Is it
No.
Sunshine in Paris versus Jolie Star, or you think there's more quality in there
I think Team Hawks might have a say.
in Macarena?
Yeah. If she's had a breathing drama and she's been as competitive as she was last prep, if she improves any, she'll be in the race. The others are top quality, and maybe the favourite is not just a star, might be top tier.
Her record is unbelievable.
We'll
She's
find out Saturday.
only figured out of the top two once in her career. Oh, no, I think she's been in the top two her entire career. Never been out of the top two.
No, she's good. We'll
She's
find out how
real
good.
good.
You know what I love is this time of year when you roll into races like this where you chat to several stables and they're all confident.
Absolutely.
And you get the impression with this edition. And it's funny with races like this, whether it be sex defined or age defined, you quite often get an average crop. Whereas I feel as though we've been talking about length, about these 2-year-old turn 3-year-olds, and a lot of the boys in particular are handy. Then you've got the Manal versus Amina, and then you've got this crop who look really handy. So you've got these restricted races that are really, each and every one of them are going to be great.
Yeah. I mean, that race on the weekend, I agree with you. There are multiple Group 1 winners in this, of course. Sunshine in Paris, she won this last year before things went amiss before she had a slot in the Everest. Jolie Star, she's won 1,000 guineas, and we probably had her pegged as a miler. And then the training brilliance that is Chris Waller has brought her back and said she's electric over the 6 furlongs. Royal Merchant, she's a Group 1 winner in South Australia. We probably haven't seen the best of her for a little while. And then Tiz Invincible, I mean, she was terrific through that 3-year-old Princess series where we're seeing the likes of Manal and Amina do battle at the moment, and Autumn Glow, who we'll get to see next Saturday. I agree with you. I think it's a great race. We'll reserve tips for the end.
Sunshine in Paris, Everest quality, in your opinion?
Again, would want to see her first up, but the team have a big opinion of her, and she's a Group 1 winner. She won this last year, and remembering last year when she won the Shirako, she firmed significantly in the market. So if she's come back in a big way, she's going to have to mix it with the best of them. She might have to go up a notch to mix it with, I think Jolie Star will be one of her main competitors on Everest Day. Be interesting to see them go toe-to-toe this early in the spring.
It will.
Hey, speaking of Group 1s.
Yes.
The Everest.
Yes is the answer.
Is potentially going to receive Group 1 status. We hear in the next 3 or 4 weeks, which seems swift, but we have been talking about it being the number 1 sprint-rated race in the world for a long, long while. That would take us, if we also add in the fact that the All-Star Mile will get Group 1 status as well, a bit of I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. That would take us to 76 Group 1s in Australia.
So ask the question.
Are there too many Group 1s in Australia?
Yeah. And it's not fair to just answer like that, really. You need to go into detail and compare it to other countries and compare the amount of races that we have, maybe establish which distances have certain Group 1s, which sexes have certain Group 1s, and then go through and say, right, which ones maybe don't deserve that status anymore. We've got a little lost through the course of the spring with some big races like the Hill Stakes being 2 million, like the King Charles being worth a stack, with the Everest concept coming on, where traditional Group 1s maybe don't have the gravitas that they once had, and Group 2s can randomly be worth a couple of million. So I think, in answer to the question, in a longer answer, we need a real rethink.
So if we get to 76, can I throw some things at you that might make you
If I say no, will you do it anyway?
Yeah.
Okay, go.
There are 11 Group 1s over the 1,400 metres.
Okay.
That's a lot for a
non-classic
non-classic distance,
Yeah.
right? So you're not a sprinter, but you're not a miler. You sit in between, including the first 2 Group 1s of the season in August. The Winx and the Memsie are both over the 1,400 metres. And then you've got the CF4 and the Futurity.
So just on the first two,
Yeah.
they're in different states.
Yes.
So I think we both agree there should just be the one race, but one would have to succeed there.
Or you could have 2 and 1's Group 2 and one's Group 1.
Okay.
Maybe.
Who's going to take that bullet?
Great point. Not for me to decide.
It's almost like we need a huge national body that oversees
Isn't
this.
it funny? Yeah.
Yeah.
The CF4 and the Futurity, both at Caulfield in the autumn over the 1,400 metres at Wait for Age, are 2 weeks apart. So, they're the same Group 1.
Yeah.
They're the same Group 1. The Turnbull over the 2,000 metres at Flemington is at set weights. And then a week later, the Caulfield Stakes is over 2,000 metres. Yes, it's at Wait for Age, but similar style of horse.
So Caulfield Stakes is in the gun. I'm just talking holistically as to what I've heard, various opinions. My thought is Canterbury Stakes is in the gun. But that's only if you're of the opinion that if you get a few, you need to lose a few. Before we were adding 2 Group 1s, I still thought we needed to lose maybe 8 to 10.
If this keeps going, are we going to get to the point where we've got 100 Group 1s?
Well, you devalue the Group 1s.
I agree.
And I would argue they're already devalued. That's not to say as an owner that it's not a huge rush. And as a breeder, we know the importance of getting this black type. But when you've got 600 black type races, like your book just gets full like that. It's not just Group 1s. We need less Group 1s, Group 2s, Group 3s listed. We just need a cull. What do you think's a realistic number? Say Argentina, who love their thoroughbred racing, they're mid 200s. Based on that, I would say somewhere around the 450 mark.
I'd say to begin with, like I'd be happy with a cull to 500.
Yeah. So losing 100.
And how do you do it?
Yeah.
But
I agree, but losing 100.
I know.
It's going to be hard.
I mean, we race in every state and racing such a big sport in every single capital city right across the country. And I agree, like we race every day as well. Whereas in some other jurisdictions around the world, they might not race as much as us. And that's a question to ask, like comparatively to other countries who might not race as much. Maybe we do have the right number of black type races using that scale. But the problem is we're adding to Group 1s now. And you look at like, say, the Maccabi Diva on Saturday, it's a good addition of that race. I think it's a real quality addition. But it is still a stepping stone for some horses as they head on to a Cox Plate. I know that in harness racing, you were discussing this earlier,
Yeah.
there's another tier of like Group 1, so to speak. And there are races like, so the Cox Plate, the Melbourne Cup, the Golden Slipper, they're like Group 1 plus or something. You know what I mean?
And that's where it gets hard. We shouldn't have a situation where lead up races to a Group 1 are Group 1s. And prize money has probably warped it as well, because we have a few lead up races that are just worth a stack, and you sit there and you go, how did that happen? And for what purpose is that? I assume the Hill Stakes, without having, I probably shouldn't speak without looking at it thoroughly, but I assume the Hill Stakes is the feature on the day, and they wanted a main attraction through every week. That's my guess.
There's also been a number of races added over the last few years that are named after administrators or, people who've made a contribution to the wider racing industry. Like the Gay Waterhouse is a listed race at Ipswich. That doesn't sit well with me in the fact that her race across Australia, and she is the first lady of racing. She will be the greatest female trainer that this country has ever seen. And that's her race. But we've got administrators who make a huge contribution to the industry, don't get me wrong. But they get races worth like $2 or $3 million in Sydney. That does not sit well with me.
Isn't it one of Bruce's great bugbears that
There's no
Farlap
Farlap Group 1.
doesn't have a Group 1?
100%. He's so
For
right
anyone
on
out
that.
there, if you ever bump into him, just say, you know what winds me up? I
'Cause it
reckon you'll
winds
get
him
20
up
minutes
too.
out of him.
But I reckon he would completely agree with the fact that that's out of whack. Going forward, maybe we could look at that.
Yeah, well, we have a panel. In that blue book, we have a panel that establishes status and maybe there are other driving forces. Maybe we need a guest on our podcast, a member from the panel,
Good luck.
explaining the decision making.
Speaking of higher powers that be, Jamie Carr at the moment, she has found herself in a spot of bother after her ride in the McNeil Stakes on board Let's Face the Music. If you haven't taken a look at the side-on race vision and also the steward's vision, worth a look. I'm not here to cast judgment on the ride or Jamie or what happened on that day. That's essentially before the courts at the moment. But my issue at the moment is this is going to take a long time, and I don't think that's fair for anybody involved in this.
No. Generally, crimes get worse the longer the deliberation goes on. I find that with AFL tribunals, judiciaries, etc. The day of the event, it's 2 to 3. The next day, once the media gets hold of it, it's 3 to 4. By the time they're going to get suspended, they're looking at a life sentence. And you think, can't we just go back to when it was fresh and we weren't looking at this so critically? Jamie's ride, having read the rule thoroughly, it is hard to argue either way because it's a little grey. It's similar to out of bounds in AFL. So it used to be deliberate out of bounds. Now it's insufficient intent to keep the ball in. Well, that's how I kind of see the greyness of this rule. It's not that you hooked a horse. It's that you didn't give it every conceivable chance to improve its position. Based on that rule, I find it very hard for her to defend herself. She can say, I had the flu, it was windy, the gap was opening and closing, I've lost confidence since my fall. All, in my opinion, very reasonable excuses. But you can't look at that vision and say she gave the horse every chance to improve its position. The reasons really are irrelevant. according to the rule, not to me.
Yeah.
So, and from a steward's point of view, unless you have, and I want to preface this, we're only talking about this because Jamie's the one that's been charged with this at the moment. But in any case, if you have Betfair records that suggest malfeasance or you have texts that suggest wrongdoing, we don't know any of that. If you do, it's clear cut. If you don't, is there much difference between a jockey that lost confidence, a windy day, an error in judgment, a missed opportunity? I would argue I see 10 of them a month.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. And you're right. We're not privy to some of that evidence at the moment. But at the moment, so on Friday, there's a directions hearing. So nothing happens at that. They
No.
just talk for a little bit and then they're going to set a date for this to be heard by the VRT in time. We're heading into the biggest carnival that Melbourne has for the year. She is the biggest star in Victoria by a country mile. I struggle to see, the evidence is the vision that you've got, her statements of other riders, statements of the trainers and the owners, plus probably if there are betting records
And
to
they
go
would
along
take
with it.
time. They would take
They
time.
would take time, but also like
And text messages would take time.
we need to deal with this a little bit quicker than what we're doing.
Well, isn't there an option to treat it on face value and then up it if you came across that down the track? There may not be, but I feel like that would expedite the process. So deal with it based on the vision and what you've seen and everything. And I think based on this is a differing opinion to what I've heard from many this week, but I think looking at the vision, it's hard to argue she did give the horse every chance to improve its position. The gap was there. It was there for the taking. So I get her reasons why she didn't, but I think based on the rule, it's going to be really hard for her to defend that she did.
Yeah.
So she will get weeks, and I feel as though she should have got weeks 2 days after the event.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting here still
And
wondering
it's-
when we'll find out.
And it's unfair on a number of people. It's unfair on her because she will be riding with this hanging over her head, and I don't think that's entirely fair, especially if she's found innocent of the charge. So that's hanging over her head. But also in terms of her bookings, there's going to be people who think she's a great rider, and she is. She's an amazing rider, and she's an amazing horsewoman, and they're going to support her with giving rides. But there's also going to be other people who might have given her a ride and go, well, at the moment, I'm not going to give her a
But
ride.
the owner of that horse has come out and said he's happy with it.
Yeah.
It happens. These things happen in racing. She missed a half gap, probably a full gap, but it happens. Think about if we got judged on a show. Now, I shouldn't put you in the same boat as me because I can have some stinkers. But if I have a stinking show and they go, Ben, you need to be better than that, 2 weeks, no money. You're just off for 2 weeks or 2 months. Like a plumber, hey, mate, did you see that drain that you blocked? It's blocked again. A month, no pay. Like you do need to remember these are humans that make mistakes. If you can't prove it was deliberate, which is very hard to prove, then, a slap on the wrist, a couple of meetings that says do better next time, and then let's get back to it.
Again, there's things that we might not be privy to at the moment, and we'll
Yep.
find out in time. But I just wish this was expedited because I just don't think it's good for the carnival. I don't think it's good for her. I don't think it's good for anyone.
You know
unless
what's
this can be dealt with in a quick and timely manner.
No, and this whole, we need to wait until blah, blah, blah is available.
Oh my God, that's
you
your
need
job.
to be available.
Be available. That's
Yeah.
your job, right?
Yeah, you're away, come back.
Come back.
Deal with it and then head off. You're not busy 90% of the time. Or
I'm sure
am I being mean there?
No, I'm sure that
In that role, you can't be.
No, I agree with you. Let's get into Saturday selections, who we're playing this Saturday. We'll start with the Scirocco for the fillies and the mares. Are you with either of those fancies in Sunshine and Paris or Jolly Star?
No.
Oh, Macarena.
Macarena. And price-wise, worth an each-way play.
Got
See
9
how
runners
she
in the
comes
field.
back. She's had a throat up. She couldn't breathe and she's running, within a length of the best. She might be the best. We'll soon find out. Favourite tough to beat, but Macarena the betting play for me.
For
You.
me, she's not a bet because she's too short, but I think Jolly Star will continue to go on with it. I think we're dealing with a really special horse here, and I know she probably didn't beat an elite field at her last start, but the manner in which she did it and eased down to the line, I can understand her being so incredibly short in the market, but not a betting proposition too short, way too short.
If Sunshine in Paris or she happens to win, then we may have a new favourite.
Maybe we do.
Mm.
That's exciting. Into the Maccabi Diva at Flemington over the mile.
So Via Sistina, I think given what I said a couple of weeks ago, if I didn't go that way, it would seem a little bit hypocritical. I think she's better than them. Simple as that.
Same. I completely agree. A tissue gets better as the prep goes on. Prior to Jenny, I can't back her based on what I saw last start. I'd be absolutely thrilled to see her come out and really be fighting out the finish, but hard to have a bet when she's done what she has in the Memsey. Warmonger's first up. He's going to get further. Antino, he
Jury's
was good. Jury's probably out. Whether he can mix it with the best in Melbourne. Circle of Fire is going to need one. Pinstriped, he's a last start Group 1 winner. Can he win 2 Group 1s on the trot? You'd probably say no.
Hey, just on Circle of Fire, I'm so keen for the Melbourne Cup.
Are you?
Mm.
Who would ride him? What weight would he get?
Good question.
Something to talk about next week. I think weights are
Okay.
just around the corner.
Good.
And then the Run to the Rose for the 3-year-olds, Group 2 level at Rosehill Gardens.
I'm probably going off a run or two too early, but Traffic Warden.
You got a big soft spot for him.
Yeah.
Mm.
Agreed. Are you Storm Boy?
I think I am.
This is- How good's the media game?
You live and learn, don't you?
Yeah.
You live and learn.
But we did say it'll be better if the best Storm Boy rocks up,
100%.
best Pride of Jenny rocks up, the best Amelia's Jewel rocks up. So,
It's not knocking the
You can
horse.
flip.
It's literally going, I want to see him perform first up. And we did and go, well, how can you ignore that? You'd be a mug if you ignored that. Same as Amelia's Jewel going.
hang on, I've just tipped against you. and
But
you're
you
like,
think
point
he'll be
made.
in the finish, you'd think so.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Does Right to Party keep on winning?
Horses for courses, baby.
Yeah.
She loves that Flemington straight 6.
Yeah.
She has her runs timed. She has a will to win. She'll flash home.
Oh,
I think you can get like nearly $5 for her, which I think is overs.
Close last start was ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the way that she can maneuver herself to find the gap or clear air is really special. Like she settles like tail end of the field, and often that's a recipe for trouble, but she has an ability to just get in there and stretch her neck out.
I know you're probably biased, but I love those colours too.
They're
They're so identifiable.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially when you see them flashing late like that.
I can't see why she can't keep winning, because just like the 1,000 metres at Moonee Valley is, and was proven last weekend, specialist trip track kind of scenario, I think the same is for the Flemington Straight.
Yeah.
And she's the one with the record and the runs on the board there. So yeah, I hope she can, because I love the way she goes about it.
Yeah, same. Good racing. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Enjoy your weekend punting. Hopefully it's a profitable one, and we'll see you next week on So We Think.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.